Alright, I am back with a Lost Ark video. I know there's more or less non-stop Destiny news all the time now, but ahead of tomorrow's TWAB, I wanted to take a break and talk about Lost Ark, which technically has launched. It is in the early access period. You get, if you've bought one of the Founders Editions, which is mostly just a big pile of cosmetics like mounts and pet cats and things. It's the thing, the three-headed dog thing I'm riding around on in this video. Which I find ironic because a three-headed dog thing was also a pre-order bonus for Outriders as part of your, is like a truck face or truck grill you could put on your car. The game is free to play, and it technically, like, for real launches on Friday, and that's why I've been so ridiculously impressed with how well it's doing. Like, this game was always on my radar ever since, I think Destin put it on my radar, but he told me it was like Korean Diablo, which in many ways it is, and that's enough to get me interested in anything. I am a huge Diablo 2 and 3 person, to the point where, like, I was chronically addicted to Diablo 2 at a few different points in my life, to my detriment, but, and then I played Diablo 3 for several thousand hours, but that is a very old game now. That's from 2012, so it's been quite a while since there's anything to fill that gap other than, like Path of Exile, and like they made a couple Torchlight games, but the genre has moved on to be like everything is inspired by Diablo. Like Outriders is inspired by Diablo, Borderlands, like Destiny. All of these games have roots in Diablo's ARPG stuff, but they are not like Diablo in the traditional sense. Like, they are shooters, whereas Diablo is this top-down ARPG, and that is obviously very much what Lost Ark is. The difference with Lost Ark is that it combines that with a ton of MMO elements, to the point where I keep being kind of in awe of how massive this game was. I played my review copy on the PTS. They gave it to me really early. I had it like a month ago at least. And I was playing and I thought I hit the end, and then they're like, oh, go to this boat. And I'm like, okay, so I get in this boat, and then the entire map opens up, and there was like 7 or 8 continents that each have their own like quests to get the pieces of the arc, or the different arcs in the game. And then there are like total endgame zones that are for ultra higher level players, and like there are dozens of little islands with their own little mini quests scattered around. And like this game is, I don't even know how many classes it has. It has like 5 or 6 classes you can play, and then within those, each of those has 2 or 3 subclasses that are completely different weapons, completely different skill trees. It's a just enormous game on a level that, I mean, it's much bigger than Diablo. I'm not saying it's better than Diablo, but like in terms of its sheer size and volume here, it is huge. That's a good and bad thing. I think one of the disadvantages of Lost Ark is that there's a good amount of filler here, in that, like, this is kind of what this video is like, this is a lot of the game, other than the part later where I'm disguised as a clown. You'll see. This is a fairly typical thing where, like, you have this big kind of preset open zone with respawning enemies and other players running around, and like you'll get a part of the main quest, and you'll get a bunch of side quests in the same area, and then you go to this part of the map and you kill a bunch of things and collect a bunch of things, and then move to the next part of the map where you turn those quests in and get new quests. This is a huge portion of the game, to the point where it does get pretty repetitive within the campaign itself, and that's, I'd say, something that's kind of a disadvantage there. However, I will say that this game also has some very good set pieces, like better than anything we saw from Diablo 3, which, I mean, it's been, again, 10 years, so that's hopefully to be expected. But again, there just had not been that many games in this genre. There's a sequence in the story campaign where you're like, it's like a Lord of the Rings siege of like a castle, and then later you have to like defend your own castle against waves and waves of enemies, and like the enemy density can get kind of crazy here. There's some cool boss fights, like you fight a demon ascending a tower, and then the different continents all have like really distinct looks and features and enemies and gameplay, where the first like kind of island, I don't remember what this continent's called, but it's pretty relatively basic. Like, it's your kind of typical fantasy settings where there's a forest zone and a ruined castle zone and a desert zone and whatever. But like, once you get out of this, you go to like this island that's full of like little tiny plant people, and there's like this big you know, plant-based storyline. You're trying to save them, and then you go to a kind of like Asian-inspired city where they're having a martial arts tournament that you compete in, but it's corrupted by demons and stuff. And then you go to a steampunk city, and there's trains and all, like this game really goes some places. Is what I'm trying to say here. And I think maybe the first 10 or 15 hours or so are not the most compelling. Like, I always hate when, you know, it takes that long for games to spool up, but after that, I think it really gets going. I will say one thing the game does well early is I think combat is pretty fun from the get-go, where this isn't Diablo where you have to unlock every single skill manually. You'll start with at least, I don't know, 5 or 6 skills plus an ultimate ability, so you're not just like only spamming your basic attack for, you know, the first few hours or something. And it, you know, you get a full suite of skills relatively quickly here. The game really lets you kind of diversify in terms of the different, you know, nodes and stuff you can activate, the different pathways you can upgrade these different things, and you'll find yourself kind of settling into a rhythm of your favorite skills. You can also change it based on situation. There are presets you can just switch between for like mob clearing or bosses or whatever, and I found that pretty fun. I really do enjoy combat in this a lot. I am playing the Shadowhunter class here, which is it's hard to compare it to one thing exactly. It's like a demonic rogue class, kind of, I guess, where you have dual blades, but you can also summon like giant demon hands and giant demon torsos to help you kill things, and you your ultimate is like you turn into a demonic form and destroy a bunch of stuff. It's not a video without Evie barking like a crazy person. That means something got delivered at the door. And so I've enjoyed that class. I played the Berserker Warrior Barbarian class. That was what I played in the review, and it's kind of similar to this, kind of a slower, you know, melee range, hard-hitting class, whereas the Rogue is not as slow, or the Shadowhunter is not as slow, but it's still pretty melee-based. I played a little bit around with like the Sorceress and the Gunslinger. I don't remember the exact name, but those were a little more diversified. I'm very curious to play. There's a Bard class where it's a sub-shoot of the Sorceress class, where instead of like elemental things, you're like all your moves are like music based, and like that's pretty unique. Like, you know, obviously Diablo never had anything like that, so that's pretty cool. So I want to kind of experiment with more classes. You are rewarded for doing multiple classes because you kind of have an overall roster level that can be ranked up by all of your classes as opposed to your individual character level. So you are constantly, you're making progress for your entire slate of classes, not just your individual kind of main character you're using at any given time. This game is a really good character creator. Like, you can make some like really, really cool looking, good looking male and female characters. It reminds me a lot of like Black Desert Online, which had its like famously detailed character creator. Just really good here. It's kind of ironic considering that this is a top-down game where you're never seeing your characters all that often, that close. At any time, you can zoom in to see the detail of your character, which is funny, but like it doesn't serve any practical purpose. I also am very impressed with, this is something I didn't mention in my review that I probably should have. The enemy designs here are very cool. Like, maybe not in terms of having tons and tons of diverse abilities and stuff, which, I mean, they do to a certain extent, but I am just very, very impressed with the enemy actual, like the artwork, the enemy design here, both in terms of even rank and file enemies are really cool, but a lot of the bosses they've done are very neat here, and I think this is something that the game has done extremely well. So, is there anything I'm not fully in love with about the game? Yeah, I think, so the way Lost Ark is launching here is it's launching in the West through Amazon Game Studios, but it's a Smilegate Korean game, and it's been out in Korea and places like Russia and some other regions for I think a couple of years now, 2 or 3 years. So this is essentially like a fully formed game already, where it's already been expanded and patched a bunch of times, and like they've added a bunch of stuff, and like there are just it's what I imagine it would be like to a certain extent coming into Destiny like now for the first time, where you have like 50 currencies you have no idea, you know, what to do with. And like I am now gone through the inscription tutorial 3 times now to like inscript jewelry and these little gem things, and like I still can barely comprehend what's even going on with that. And I am kind of, I feel like I'm really missing a good portion of build crafting in this game, because these systems I think are pretty convoluted, and I don't think they're explained very well personally. I'm told they're kind of more in the style of MMOs rather than ARPGs. That's something I would also consider kind of a weakness, is loot, at least so far, is pretty boring and bad. Like you get the different rarities and stuff, but the only thing that changes is like you get an upgrade and there's a little blue arrow and then you switch to it and that's it. And everything you're getting is pretty much just a flat stat boost, and there, at least so far, are no like crazy unique abilities or like game-changing drops that are really altering anything for you. I know there's legendary items and sets and things later, but at least so far it's a pretty boring loot experience. The loot looks cool. Like I like getting new loot just to see the different armor sets and the weapons and stuff you can get from a looks perspective, but definitely think that aspect of it is not really shining. And I'm a looter player. Like I really enjoy kind of loot pursuits, and it seems like I'm going to have to play 40-50 hours to even start to get to that point. And this is in a lot of ways a kind of the game really begins at the end game thing. But I will say I think there are a lot of impressive moments within the campaign as well, so I wouldn't say it's totally in that category of things, but just the early on loot, at least so far, is pretty boring on a level that I would say is even worse than kind of competitor games. And even seeing like ultra end game stuff, I'm not sure this is still my type of thing exactly in terms of how it's structuring loot. This is also a free-to-play game, which raises concerns about monetization and pay to win. This is a little hard for me to judge right now because I still don't even know enough about all the systems to like fully understand what you can buy for and what you can't. There's like some kind of little like crystal-y activation thing where it like speeds up build time at your home base and reduces travel costs and things, that it seems like it's offering innate benefits. There's a lot of cosmetic stuff they're selling. There's like mounts and pets and things that are cosmetic, and I don't like, you can emote with some pets and things, but there's nothing selling power there. But I do think there's a good amount of like boosts and some currencies you can purchase that probably do give you something of an advantage. This game does have a PvP element. I haven't done anything with that yet, but that is something that theoretically, I don't know. I don't know enough about how they balance that to see if that would be affected. But in a game like this, like if you want to pay to kind of skip ahead or go faster, I'm not like the most opposed to that. Like I don't have necessarily 1,000 hours to put into this game, so if I could double XP gain or whatever, it might be something I'd consider. I do have the like platinum whatever founders pack. I got a code for that from Amazon. I really only use the cosmetic stuff. I don't really even know what I'm supposed to be using the other stuff for. And like the more I'm thinking about this, the more I just keep remembering all the stuff in this game. Like there's an entire card system, like a series of collectible cards where if you assemble a card deck for your character, they add up to different bonuses. And then, like I said, you can build a home base where you build facilities for merchants and armor smiths, and you send people out to get currency for you. And like this game is just so ridiculously huge. It's almost comical. It is. I want to say it's almost more addicting than it is good. Like it is good, but it's just very addicting in the kind of the way it's structured and set up to be kind of a game that it wants you to just keep grinding and grinding and grinding. I am now, in this 2-week window before the Witch Queen comes out. Actually, it's more of like a 9-day window because I got to play Horizon Forbidden West when that comes out. And then Witch Queen will hit. So this seems like a game that I might play kind of in the background, but I physically will not have time to, put just the absurd amount of time you can put into a game like this. Like I have seen how hardcore endgame rating and stuff with guilds and everything can be in this. And like this game can be as hardcore as you want it. But it also can just be like kind of like, okay, I'm gonna grind out 5 combat levels today and unlock some new skills, and like that can be your just goal. So I think it kind of works in that department as just sort of a game you circle back to whenever you want. It certainly helps that it's free. I think that's going to be an advantage for a lot of people, but I would give it a shot. If you have been missing Diablo, I think this is a game that can maybe not fully fill that void, and I don't think it's doing a lot of things quite as good as Diablo, but this is a huge, very well put together, firmly established game since it's been out for so long already. That I am impressed to see how well it's doing, although, you know, with how addicted I am to it already, I guess I'm not super surprised either. So I would probably give it a shot. I will be covering this game to some extent. I don't know how often I'll make videos and stuff, but I'll be writing about it. I gotta do like a tips article and things, even though I like barely know what I'm doing half the time, but yeah, so give it a shot and let me know what you think. Alright, I'll talk to you guys later, and take care.